Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MTGO Traders. My name is Taryn. Let's talk about Ravnica Allegiance preview cards for January 7th. So what's up, guys? We have more cards to talk about today, so let's jump right into it. Not going to waste any of your time, but of course, if you want to, like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure to hit that bell icon to be notified when we have a new video going live on the channel, basically every day this week. Also, before we get into the cards, I know I just said we don't want to waste any time, but Open House, Magic Open House is this weekend, and we made a video on that last set for Guilds of Ravnica. I'm going to put it probably up here, somewhere up there on the screen for you guys. If you don't know what Magic Open House is, that video explains it, and if you want to go to Magic Open House, that video explains why you should go. But let's get into the cards now. Homunculus is a card here. For us, I really like the name here. It is a 5-mana 2/5. It's a hexproof creature. It's a common. It's really fun. I guess this is the totally lost of the set as far as putting a Fibblefip, however you want to say his name, into the set. This is not him exactly, but it is funny and cute. And it's a 2/5 with hexproof for 5, which is something you might want in your draft and sealed deck. Next up for us, we have Verity Circle. This is a 3-mana enchantment. It's a rare. Whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes tapped, if it isn't being declared as an attacker, you may draw a card. You can pay 5 and tap target creature without flying. So this is quite good in standard, perhaps, mayhaps, could be, probably more of a commander card. But you know, lots of stuff for Convoke, lots of stuff for mana tappers like Landwar Elves, that kind of stuff in the format. So the Circle could be good for that as we, you know, go up against a Gruul list or a green mono green stompy list. This could be some, maybe some good sideboard stuff for standard. It feels a little kind of narrow for that format. Maybe this will see more play in Commander instead. And since this is a rare, I probably won't recommend you ever play this for draft and seal. You're not really going to see anything of the sort for this card for draft and sealed unless they're tapping out for a specific ability. So not going to see it there. We've got Drillbit here, a 3-mana sorcery, has Spectacle for 1. Target player reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. Wow, even the flavor text says never boring. I love this card. I think it's very powerful. It's as close as we can get to a Thoughtseize. It can't be turn 1, obviously, because we need the mana to burn as well as cast this, so we can't do both. But very, very close to being able to be, you know, done against our opponent. So very cool for that. With Shocklands in the format, this will be really fun as well. So don't really know when this will kind of come into play for the format. I feel like this is going to be a good standard card. Not really going to see play in probably draft and sealed. And of course we have Thoughtseize in modern in general. So this is going to see any kind of play except for probably something in standard. I don't think it's going to see play in a main deck though, probably just sideboard Magic, and that's fine by me. Next up for us, we have Nikia of the Old Ways. This is a 5-mana 5/5 legendary creature, Centaur Druid. You can't cast non-creature spells, and whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana of any type that land produces. So this is really nice because it's a very powerful ramp for you, but also it's in a deck where you can't cast non-creature spells. So it's interesting, might make a really cool Gruul commander for Commander, but besides that, not really going to see play mostly, I feel like, in standard, unless there's just enough Gruul in the format to be just a powerhouse deck, which there might be, honestly, because there are so many good Gruul cards right now. So this is one of those cards where it's like, it's so close to being like, oh, amazing. It kind of does the same thing with Nullhide Ferox, which is also in the format right now, where it makes it so you can't cast non-creature spells. It's really kind of forcing you into this creature only deck list, which is something that could probably be built right now in standard and something I kind of want to see as well. And of course, this could make a really fun commander deck too. Besides that, draft and seal, this is a rare, so you won't run into it that often, but if you get into it as your rare, it is a powerhouse of a card. A 5-mana 5/5 is very good, and of course being able to tap for double mana is super powerful as well in draft and sealed. But you know, keep in mind you can't use non-creature spells, which means you basically have to force this card to die through combat, or your opponent has to remove it through their own non-creature spells until you can use your removal spells against your opponent. If you're playing Gruul, probably not that big of a deal in draft and sealed, honestly, so a 5-mana 5/5 is just gravy. Moving on here for us, we have a Hana Wayfinder. This is a 2 green elf scout. It's a 2/1. Whenever it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card and put it on the top of your library. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this is kind of like Explore Explorer, but hitting the top 4 and putting them on the bottom. So not really Explorer, but being able to basically cycle a little bit. If you need mana, you get mana. If you need a creature, you get a creature. I like that quite a bit. I do think the Wayfinder is going to see probably some standard play somewhere. Not sure exactly where just yet, but I do know that it will see a lot of draft and sealed play. It is an uncommon. It's going to help you kind of dig for your giant answer in the middle of a match in draft and sealed, so very good for that. It's a 2-mana 2/1, so you're not going to see a ton of combat happening with this. It's probably going to be a more defensive player in draft and sealed, but still, digging for an answer or digging for mana, always good things to see in draft sealed, and of course, standard. And it's an elf too, so man, see it in an elf deck in standard as well. Sphinx of the new Prov, I guess that's how you want to say that, is a 2 white, 2 blue. This is again the last of the 4 color cards here. Creature Sphinx, Flying Vigilance. Spells that your opponent casts that target Sphinx of the new Prov cost 2 colorless more to cast. This is quite a good bomb for you in draft and sealed. While it is quite restrictive on the mana, it is a 4/3 flyer with Vigilance, and that is quite good. So do get into this if you are in Azurius in draft and in sealed. Not going to see any kind of play in standard though. It's a little too expensive for that particular format, and it's also just not that great for that format as well. If it was like, you know, targets Sphinx and other creatures you control, that would be amazing. That would be close to something like what we already have in standard for Merfolk. I really like that idea, but since it's not and it's just for the Sphinx, it's only going to see pretty much draft and sealed play. But regardless, still a good card for us. Essence Capture is here for us, a 2 blue instant counter target creature spell. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature you control. So this is really good for a Simic Adapt deck. It could also probably see some play in a more heavy, like counter-based deck for Merfolk, perhaps in standard, maybe as a sideboard instead of Essence Scatter. Keep in mind it is 2 blue and not 1 blue and 1 colorless, so I still think you want to, like, you know, favor Essence Scatter over Essence Capture here, but I do think Essence Capture in draft and sealed is quite powerful because it builds your board state, it counters a creature, and it's an instant speed counter, so that's really good. It's just that it's 2 blue instead of a blue and a colorless, so you definitely want to look into that. I feel like it might see some standard play in a Merfolk list or a Simic list in general, but we'll kind of see how that kind of shakes out. Being 2 blue makes it quite hard to cast effectively really quickly. Next up for us, we have Theater of Horrors. This is a 3-mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. During your turn, if an opponent lost life this turn, you may play cards exiled with Theater of Horrors. That's amazing. And for 4 mana, it can deal 1 point of damage to target opponent or planeswalker. I really like how it kind of like signifies opponent and planeswalker, not any target. If it was any target, I feel like it might have been too good. Probably was that originally in testing, and then it was like, oh, it's too good in the late game for draft and sealed. This is a great card for Rakdos. This is especially good because it's not necessarily getting rid of those cards forever. It's exiling them to Theater, and if your opponent lost life that turn, you can definitely cast stuff from the exile from Theater of Horrors. So it's not getting rid of things technically, and I really like that, which is like exactly what we want to be doing with Rakdos. You want to be filtering through your deck as quickly as possible. If you get, you know, a burn spell from Theater of Horrors, you burn them with something in your hand and then burn that as well from the exile. So super powerful, very good in the mid to late game especially, and has a lot of late game reach for draft and sealed with that 4 mana burn point. Even though it is just 1 point, sometimes it does go down to 1 or 2 points in the end of a match for draft and sealed. So Theater of Horrors, very good for us for draft and sealed. Probably going to see some standard workaround play, and definitely going to see a lot of commander play as well. This card is bonkers good in a Rakdos deck or a Jund list as well. Next up for us, we have Rakdos Roost. I think that's how you pronounce that. A 3-mana 3/2 Ogre Warrior. Whenever it becomes blocked, it deals 1 damage to the player or planeswalker it's attacking. So that's interesting because it's denoting, you know, creature, planeswalker, player. It's not doing 1 point of damage to a creature. It's just doing it to the player or a planeswalker. So if it does get blocked by like a 1/1, it's not doing an extra point of damage to the creature. It's just doing the damage to the player. So it's kind of giving it like a 1-point trample, which is interesting. Same thing for planeswalkers too. I really like this, especially in those kind of matchups in draft sealed and in standard, where you have situations where they just have blockers in the way of their planeswalker and you can't get to it. Well, this Rakdos here is really good at being able to ping that planeswalker just a little bit to kind of get it down from either going off on an ultimate or negativing, like -2 or -3, whatever. I think this is really good for that. It's a 3-mana 3/2, so it's going to see see a lot of draft and sealed play. It's also a common, so you're going to see it quite a bit. So maybe some brew around play in standard, but for right now, just going to see some nice draft and sealed play. Next up for us, we have Hackrobat. It's like an acrobat, but it's Hackrobat. This right here needs to be the new meme card, basically, for the format. A 3-mana 2/3 with Spectacle for 2. You can pay 1 black and it gains Death Touch until end of turn, or you can play 1 red, pay 1 red, not play 1 red, pay 1 red, and it gets +2, -2 until end of turn, becoming a 4/1. Obviously, you can do that again, but you know it's going to kill itself if it does that. So I really like how this can become a 4/1 with Death Touch in the same turn. That's really fun. It's also really powerful at being able to be cast for just 2 mana if your opponent, you know, has been burned this turn. So very good for that as well. It's also just a 3-mana 2/3, and those are all right too, not too bad, but all of these on top of this card make this a supremely good uncommon for draft and sealed. I don't think this will see any kind of standard play, perhaps because of how cheap the spectacle cost is here, but to me it just feels like a very good, like, low curve Rakdos card for you. We do need to see a lot of burn though in the format, and we haven't really seen that just yet, so I'm really kind of curious on what kind of burn we are going to be getting in the set for draft and sealed, because again, haven't seen too much of it. A Vaishino Pyromancer kind of effect would be great. Maybe a Piercing Heart Curse kind of effect would be great in this set as well. Just really curious to see what we have in the set that we can use for draft and sealed to get these spectacle costs off. If it's just creature combat, then they will not be as good as they seem to be. But in standard, they'll be definitely pretty okay, thanks to all the burn we have in that format. Next up for us, we have Sorrowform Hybrid, a 2-mana 2/2. It's a human lizard warrior, lots of things thrown in there. It's a Simic, of course. You can pay 6 and adapt 4, turning this 2/2 into a 6/6. It's a common. It's ridiculous, very powerful. I really like this as a great bottom slot for you in the common slot for draft and sealed for Gruul or for Simic. Being able to pay 6 and turn this into a 6/6 is just insane, giving this card a lot of leeway in the early game, and if opponent doesn't deal with it and you have the mana, it turns into a 6/6, which is a late game threat. I really like that. I don't think it's going to see any kind of standard play, perhaps. It does feel like the adapt 4 on top of it, if we get into maybe a Gruul list in standard, this could turn into a 6/6 bomb for you there and be really powerful. But so far, I feel like this is just going to be a great card for you in draft and sealed, doing exactly what you want to do, being a great card in the early game and a fantastic card in the mid to late game, hopefully closing out a match with the hybrid here. Next up for us, we have Kaya's Wish, a 4-mana board wipe. We haven't seen this in quite a while. This is a sorcery. Destroy all creatures. You gain life equal to the number of creatures you control that were destroyed this way. So it's kind of giving us a our side Fumigate, which is interesting. This could be really useful into a perhaps Orzhov token list. I'm not so sure this will see much play outside of an Orzhov list, obviously, because the mana is so restrictive on this card. 2 white, 2 black. Would love to see this in an Esper list as well for control, but of course you won't be gaining that secondary ability, which is of course gaining the life from creatures that were destroyed this way. I highly doubt an Esper control deck will have any kind of creatures besides maybe tokens, but we'll kind of see how that deck kind of shakes out once the full set is spoiled. But Kaya's Wrath, amazing, great card, going to be in every single Esper control list, going to be in a lot of Orzhov lists, as well as a good sweeper against mono red, and of course Gruul Tempo and Gruul Aggro. Wow, really can't wait to play a 4-mana sweeper back in standard. That's just fantastic for us. Next up for us, we have Gruul Beastmaster. This is a 4-mana, almost said 3-mana, a 4-mana 2/2 human shaman. It's an uncommon. It has Riot, and whenever the Beastmaster, there we go, the Beastmaster, whenever the Beastmaster attacks, another target creature you control gets +X/+0 on twin of turn, where X is the Gruul Beastmaster's power. So that's interesting. So it can be a 2/2 with haste, being able to pump something else for 2, which is nice, or a 3/3 that can attack and giving +3/+0 to something else as well. So very nice. Lots of nice board wide pump here. The art on this, very strange. I'm not really sure. It makes me, I want to say Bear Master, but it's a Beastmaster for some reason. But a 4-mana 2/2 is not great. A 4-mana 3/3 that gives a good ability is good, and a 4-mana 2/2 that gives a pump ability as well is pretty good as well. So it's not terrible, but I do think it's probably a little too high cost of being at the uncommon slot. It feels more like a common to me. However, you're going to pick this in draft and sealed if you're in Gruul or if you're in Simic and you want to have that go wide strategy. You're going to use this card all the time. Now in standard, not going to see any kind of play. A little too expensive for that format. Next up for us, we have Savage Smash. This is a 3-mana sorcery. Target creature you control gets It's +2/+2 until end of turn. It fights target creature you don't control, which is super good. So this is really good for us. It's good removal for Gruul, not necessarily dealing actual damage as far as like direct damage, but is fighting, of course, and that's really nice for us. And can hopefully kind of get around some nice situations where, you know, our creature is just small enough to not be able to get over that creature. So we have this little pump here, and they fight each other, and they either trade, or our creature, of course, fights their creature and wins. Super fun. Savage Smash, great name for this card as well. Most likely we'll not see any kind of standard play, but we'll definitely see a lot of draft and sealed play for sure. Mesmerizing Benthid, I think that's how you want to say that, is a 5-mana 4/5 Octopus. This is a mythic for us in blue. Whenever the Benthid enters the battlefield, create 2/0/2 blue illusion creature tokens with, quote, whenever this creature blocks a creature, that creature doesn't untap during its uncontroller's next untap step. The Benthid has hexproof as long as you control an illusion. So this could be a reason to play the Jace from Ixalan again in standard. Very interesting. It's a 5-mana 4/5, so that's really nice. It's a 5-mana 4/5 that has hexproof. That's also super nice as well when it enters the battlefield. Now keep in mind, a Definite Clarion or something like that will be able to deal with the illusion tokens on the battlefield, but if we have the Jace in play in standard, it might actually, you know, kind of survive some stuff a little bit more frequently than normal. However, in draft and sealed, this is a huge bomb that you will always get into if you're in Azorius or into Simic. It is a mythic though, so you're not going to get into it that often. So really kind of sad about that. I do think this is a huge card for you in Commander if you have an illusions list and want to kind of get into that, of course, because it is slowing down creatures and it's a 4/5 by itself too, which is really fun. So for standard, might see some play and maybe a Jace deck if someone wants to kind of brew around an illusion list. I think that's really fun. I think we're probably missing a little bit as far as cards for the illusion list, but we could always use some more in the next set, which is really fun as well. Or from this set, we just haven't seen everything just yet. But I do think this is a really great card of being able to, one, slow down your opponent in draft and sealed and just be a 4/5 house, and that's really good. Last card for us today is Domri, Chaos Bringer. It is the new Gruul Planeswalker. It's a 4-mana 5 loyalty. That is a lot. +1, -3, and -8. The +1, of course, is add red or green mana to your mana pool. If that mana is spent to cast a creature, it gains Riot, which is, it's superb, super powerful. Again, Riot, a very powerful mechanic in the Gruul list. Love that for this card here. Having Riot is just so good because it makes a creature already better. That's awesome. -3, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 creature cards from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So if you get into 2 bombs or 2 creatures in the top 4, that's really good. You're basically drawing 2 cards with a -3 here. That's super powerful, especially into a Gruul creature only list, which could be the reason why we saw that giant centaur from a second ago, the legendary centaur, where it's just, you know, you can't cast non-creature spells. As long as you can get out of Domri, I think you should be fine. So very powerful for that. And -8 is you get an emblem with, at the beginning of each end step, create a 4/4 red and green beast creature token with trample. So the -8 is not that powerful. I feel like it's a little slow. I would really like something where it kind of, you know, kind of like how the original Domri raid was, where it kind of gave you a really nice creature-wide buff. This just gives you creatures turn over turn. It's not the same as well, just like how Liliana kind of like multiplied each turn over turn. So while Liliana like made a token or 2 at the beginning, if an opponent didn't deal with the game soon enough, then it would just take over the match. This doesn't do that. It just gives you a 4/4 every single turn. So there may be no reason really to go with an ultimate here unless you just have the loyalty to where Domri Raid doesn't die when you do it. But still powerful. I still think the +1 on this card is perfect. I think the -3 is very good in a creature only Gruul list. So we'll have to see what this does in standard. As far as draft and sealed, this is a powerhouse. It's going to do a lot of good stuff for you. And of course it's a mythic, so you're not going to get into it that much in draft and sealed. But for standard, I think this is going to be brewed around with a lot. It is a 4-mana 5 loyalty Planeswalker, which is quite good. It's probably the strongest Planeswalker out of the 3 so far, and I'll probably do a ranking list once we see all the Planeswalkers, if we have any more in the format just yet, but we'll definitely look into that for sure. I still love Domri Chaos Bringer. I think it's a very powerful card. I just don't know how powerful. For me right now, it's probably like sitting at a 7 out of 10. It could be pushed up to an 8, with the rest of the set spoiled. So, but that is all the cards for today on the preview video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I think Domri Chaosbringer was my favorite of the day. It's just a very flavorful card, really fun card. A lot of other fun stuff was shown today as well. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like the video, of course, if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And make sure to hit that bell icon to be notified when a new video on this channel goes live. We've got MTGO Finance that went up earlier today. We have preview videos the rest of this week. And of course, draft videos from Kenji, Numatanami, and of course other videos. We have deck techs and all that kind of fun stuff. I think right after this we'll do the pre-release videos, and then of course the review videos for the entire set, and then just kind of get into it with decks and deck lists for standard. So love you guys. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.